Disclaimer.
His loyalty became my permission to destroy him.
My name is Rebecca Ann Parker. I am 34 years old. I died for 7 minutes on March 18th, 2023 in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I need you to understand something before I tell you what happened to me. Before I begin, please subscribe so more people can hear testimonies like this. I was not a bad person. I paid my bills on time. I went to church most Sundays. I loved my husband, or at least I thought I did. But love and cruelty can live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, and share the same last name. And for 10 years, I let them both call my marriage home. David and I met in college. He was quiet, steady, the kind of man who fixed things without being asked. I was sharp, ambitious, the kind of woman who knew what she wanted and how to get it. We balanced each other, or so everyone said. What they did not see was how quickly balance can turn into control. How easily strength can become violence when no one is watching. I work as a litigation paralegal. My job is to find weaknesses in arguments, to spot inconsistencies, to build cases that cannot be torn down. I am good at it. Too good. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped leaving that skill at the office. I brought it home. I brought it to the dinner table. I brought it to bed. And I used it like a weapon against the one person who had vowed to love me no matter what. Our mornings always started the same way. David would wake up early, make coffee, try to do something kind before I even opened my eyes. But kind was never enough. It had to be perfect. It had to meet a standard I never clearly defined because I did not want him to meet it. I wanted him to fail so I could remind him that I was the one holding everything together. That morning was no different. I walked into the kitchen, still half asleep, and saw the coffee mug sitting on the counter. He had used the wrong beans. The dark roast instead of the medium. Such a small thing. Such a stupid, meaningless thing. But I could not let it go. Really, David? I said, my voice already edged with irritation. I have asked you 100 times. Medium roast. How hard is that? He looked up from his phone, his face already resigning itself to another fight. I thought we were out. I was just trying to. You were just trying to what? Do the bare minimum and hope I would not notice? I picked up the mug and poured it down the sink, slow and deliberate, making sure he saw. If you are going to do something, do it right. Or do not do it at all. He did not respond. He just stared at the counter, his jaw tight, his hands still. That silence used to make me feel powerful. Like I had won. But somewhere deep beneath the satisfaction was something else. Something I refused to name. Loneliness. The kind that grows in a house where no one is actually seen. I grabbed my bag and left without saying goodbye. I always left without saying goodbye. Work was a blur of depositions and filing deadlines, but my mind kept drifting back to the kitchen. To the look on David's face. To the way his shoulders had slumped like he was carrying something too heavy to name. I tried to push it away, tried to focus on the case in front of me, but my mother's voice kept creeping in. Sharp. Cold. Unyielding. She used to do the same thing to my father. Correct him in front of guests. Mock his ideas. Withhold affection until he apologized for things that were not entirely his fault. I watched her win every argument and lose every piece of his heart in the process. And I swore I would never become her. But I had. I knew I had. I just did not know how to stop. I remembered being 7 years old, hiding in my bedroom while my mother tore my father apart over a forgotten anniversary. I remembered the sound of his voice breaking. The way he stopped trying after a while. The way he just disappeared, even when he was still in the room. I hated her for that. I hated what she did to him. And now I was doing the same thing to David. The thought made my chest tighten, but I shoved it down. I had work to do. I had cases to build. I had a reputation to maintain. Feelings could wait. Feelings always waited. By the time I got home that evening, I was exhausted. Not just physically. Emotionally. The kind of tired that settles into your bones and makes everything feel heavier than it is. I walked through the door and saw David sitting on the couch, sketching something in a notebook. He did that sometimes. Drew plans for furniture he wanted to build. Cabinets. Tables. Bookshelves. He had this dream of starting a small woodworking business, something he could do on weekends, something that was his. I used to think it was cute. Now I thought it was a distraction. Still drawing imaginary furniture? I said, dropping my bag on the floor. My voice was light, but the edge was there. It was always there. He looked up, hesitated, then closed the notebook. Just thinking. Thinking does not pay bills, David. He did not respond. He never did anymore. He just stood up, walked into the kitchen, and started pulling things out of the fridge for dinner. I followed him, my irritation growing with every step. I did not even know why I was irritated. I just was. It was like anger had become my default setting, and I did not know how to turn it off. That is when I saw them. The dishes. Piled in the sink. Unwashed. Still crusted with food from lunch. Something inside me snapped. Are you serious right now? I said, my voice rising before I could stop it. I have been at work all day, and you have been home for 2 hours. 2 hours, David. And you could not wash a few dishes? He turned around slowly, his face already tired. I was going to do them after dinner. I just wanted to. You just wanted to what? Avoid responsibility? Like always? I was yelling now, my hands shaking. Do you know how exhausting it is to live with someone who does not pull their weight? Who does not think? Who just coasts through life expecting me to pick up the slack? Rebecca, it is just dishes. It is never just dishes. I slammed my hand on the counter and he flinched. It is the coffee. It is the bills you forget to pay. It is the promises you make and never keep. It is 10 years of me having to be the responsible one while you just float. His face changed then. Something hardened behind his eyes. You want to talk about 10 years? Fine. Let us talk about 10 years of walking on eggshells. 10 years of being told I am not good enough no matter what I do. 10 years of living with someone who treats me like an employee instead of a husband. The words hit me like a slap, but I could not stop. I did not want to stop. Maybe if you acted like a husband, I would not have to treat you like a child. I am not your father, Rebecca. His voice cracked, and I saw tears in his eyes. Actual tears. I am not the one who abandoned you. I am still here. I have always been here. But you punish me like I am him. Every single day. My chest was tight. My heart was racing. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but the words would not come. The room started spinning. My vision blurred at the edges. Rebecca? David's voice sounded far away. I tried to take a breath, but my lungs would not fill. My chest seized. Pain shot down my left arm. The kitchen floor tilted, and I felt myself falling. David was shouting my name, but I could not answer. I could not move. I could not breathe. Everything went dark. And then, I was floating. Above my body. Watching. David was on his knees beside me, his hands shaking as he pressed against my chest, counting compressions through sobs. My body looked so small on the tile floor. So still. The dishes were still in the sink. The argument was still hanging in the air. But I was not there anymore. I heard him scream for someone to call 911. I heard his voice break as he begged me to stay. I saw the exact moment he realized I might actually be gone. And all I could think was, this is how it ends. This is the last thing I said to him. The light started pulling me then. Not warm. Not welcoming. Just inevitable. Like gravity in reverse. I was moving away from the kitchen, away from David, away from everything I knew. And I was terrified. Because somewhere deep down I knew. I knew I was about to face something I was not ready for. The light was not gentle. It did not wrap around me like the near-death stories I had heard in church testimonies. It was cold. Clinical. The kind of light that reveals everything you have been hiding. I felt myself moving through it, weightless but not free. My chest no longer hurt. My body no longer existed. But I was still me. Still Rebecca. Still carrying every argument, every cutting word, every moment of cruelty I had convinced myself was justified. And then the light stopped. I was standing now. Not floating. Standing on something solid. The air was heavy, thick with a silence that pressed against my ears. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I tried to move, but my legs felt rooted. Panic clawed at my throat. Where was I? What was happening? Slowly, the space around me began to take shape. Walls formed from light itself, towering and ancient. The floor beneath my feet was smooth, like marble, but transparent. I looked down and gasped. Beneath the glass surface, flames flickered. Not roaring, not consuming. Just there. A reminder. A warning. I was in a courtroom. Not like the ones I worked in. This was something else entirely. The air hummed with authority. The kind you do not question. The kind that makes you want to fall to your knees even though no one has told you to. Stone tables stretched across the room, covered in scrolls tied with golden cord. They were stacked high, organized, waiting. And in the center of it all, on a marble pedestal, was a book. Massive. Ancient. Glowing faintly like it held its own light source. My name was inscribed at the top of the open page in letters that shimmered like molten gold. Rebecca and Morrison. My heart. I did not have a heart anymore, did I? But I felt it. Pounding. Racing. Terror flooding through me in waves. What is this? I whispered, and this time my voice worked. It echoed through the chamber, small and broken. No one answered. But I was not alone. I knew I was not alone. I could feel eyes on me. Not cruel. Not kind. Just seeing. Fully. Completely. The way no one on earth had ever seen me. The way I had never wanted to be seen. I took a step forward, my legs trembling. The book seemed to pulse as I approached, like it was alive. Like it was waiting for me. I did not want to look. Every instinct in me screamed to run, to hide, to do anything but face what was written there. But I could not move away. I could only move closer. And then the pages began to turn on their own. Scenes appeared in the air above the book like holograms, vivid and undeniable. I saw my kitchen. I saw David standing at the counter, pouring coffee into my favorite mug. I watched him check the label on the bag twice to make sure he got it right. Medium roast. He got it right. But then I saw myself walk in. I saw the look on my face before I even tasted it. The decision to be cruel was already made. I watched myself pour it down the sink, slow and deliberate, making sure he saw. Making sure he felt small. No, I whispered. That is not. I did not. But I did. I had. The scene played on, merciless and exact. I heard my own voice, sharp and dismissive. I saw the way David's face went blank. The way his shoulders sagged. The way he stopped trying to defend himself because he had learned it would not matter. The scene shifted. Another morning. Another argument. This time it was about laundry. He had folded the towels wrong. I made him redo them while I stood there watching, arms crossed, making sure he knew how disappointed I was. Another scene. Dinner with his brother. I made a joke about David never finishing what he started. Everyone laughed. David did not. He just stared at his plate, his jaw tight, his hands gripping his fork like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. Another scene. Our bedroom. David reaching for me in the dark, trying to bridge the distance between us. I turned away. Cold. Punishing. Using intimacy as a weapon. Using his need for connection as leverage. I wanted to look away, but I could not. The scenes kept coming, one after another, building into a portrait of a marriage I did not recognize. Except I did recognize it. Because I had lived it. I had created it. But I had never seen it from his side. With each scene, I felt what he felt. The shame. The rejection. The slow, agonizing death of hope. I felt the weight of walking on eggshells every single day. I felt the exhaustion of loving someone who only saw your flaws. I felt the loneliness of being married to someone who treated you like an adversary instead of a partner. Tears streamed down my face. Could I even cry here? I did not know. But I felt them. Hot and bitter and full of a grief I had refused to acknowledge for 10 years. I did not mean, my voice broke. I did not mean to hurt him like that. A voice filled the room then. Not loud. Not harsh. But absolute. Undeniable. It came from everywhere and nowhere, like the air itself was speaking. You asked for a husband who would never leave. I gave you one. And you made his faithfulness your excuse to wound him. I fell to my knees. The weight of the words crushed me. Because they were true. David had never threatened to leave. He had never retaliated. He had absorbed every blow, every insult, every moment of cruelty, and he had stayed. And I had mistaken his loyalty for permission to continue. The scenes kept playing. I saw the night I mocked his woodworking dreams in front of our friends. I saw the way his face went pale. The way he stopped talking about it after that. I saw the moment he gave up. Not on the dream. On me ever supporting it. I saw 1,000 small cruelties I had convinced myself did not matter. A rolled I hear. A sigh there. A dismissive comment. A refusal to listen. Each one a tiny cut. Each one bleeding him slowly. Your words were sharp because your heart was hard. The voice again. Calm. Truthful. Devastating. You punished him for not being the father you needed. My breath caught. No, that was not, but it was. It was exactly that. I saw my father's face. The way he used to look at my mother with this quiet resignation, like he had accepted he would never be enough. The way he stopped trying after a while. The way he disappeared into himself. I had hated her for that. I had hated what she did to him. And I had become her. The realization tore through me like a blade. I had spent my entire marriage punishing David for crimes my father committed. For leaving. For being weak. For not protecting me from my mother's cruelty. David had never done those things. He had never abandoned me. But I punished him anyway. Because he was there. Because he stayed. Because his faithfulness made him an easy target. Another scene appeared. Recent. Just weeks ago. David had tried to tell me about a new project he wanted to try. A bookshelf design he had been working on. His eyes were bright, hopeful, like a little boy showing his parents something he was proud of. And I had barely looked up from my phone. That is nice, David, I had said, my voice flat. Maybe after you finish the 10 other projects you started and never completed. I watched the light die in his eyes. I watched him close the notebook. I watched him walk away. And I had gone back to scrolling, feeling justified, feeling right, never once considering what I had just killed. Marriage is not a courtroom. The voice was firmer now. Not angry, but unyielding. But today, you stand in mine. I looked up at the book, at my name still glowing at the top of the page. Evidence. That is what this was. Every word I had spoken. Every tone I had used. Every moment I had chosen cruelty over kindness. It was all recorded. All weighed. All waiting. I thought about my job. About building cases. About finding weaknesses and exploiting them. I had been so good at it. I had built a career on it. But I had also built a marriage on it. And now, standing in this courtroom of light and stone and fire, I realized I had been building a case against myself the entire time. The flames beneath the glass floor flickered brighter, and I understood. I understood what they meant. I understood what I was being shown. This was not about David. This was about me. About the covenant I had broken. About the vows I had shattered with 1,000 careless words. I had promised to love him, to honor him, to cherish him. And I had done none of those things. The book glowed brighter, the pages still turning, still revealing, still exposing every wound I had inflicted. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to explain. But there was nothing to say. The evidence was absolute. And somewhere in the distance, I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming toward me from somewhere I could not see. I was no longer in my kitchen. I was no longer dying. I was somewhere else entirely, and I was not alone. The footsteps were deliberate. Each one echoed through the vast chamber like a judge entering a silent courtroom. I could not see who was walking. I could not see where the sound was coming from. But I felt it. In my chest. In my bones. In the part of me that still remembered what fear felt like. I tried to stand, but my legs would not obey. I was frozen on my knees, staring at the book with my name written in gold, watching the scenes of my marriage replay in the air like accusations I could not deny. The scrolls on the stone tables seemed to lean toward me, waiting. The flames beneath the glass floor pulsed in rhythm with the footsteps. And then the presence arrived. I cannot describe it the way you want me to. It was not a man. It was not an angel. It was not a figure I could point to and say, there. That is what I saw. It was more like the air itself became aware. Like the light in the room gained consciousness. Like love and justice and truth all merged into something so overwhelming that my mind could barely hold it. I felt small. Not in a cruel way, but in the way you feel small standing at the edge of the ocean, realizing how vast everything is beyond you. I wanted to hide. I wanted to cover my face. But there was nowhere to go. Nowhere to run. I was fully seen. Fully known. And there was no pretending anymore. Rebecca. My name. Spoken with a weight I had never heard before. Not angry. Not disappointed. Just absolute. The kind of voice that does not need to shout because every word carries the force of eternity. I tried to speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My throat was too tight. My chest too heavy. What could I possibly say? What defense could I offer when everything I had done was written in that book, replayed in the air, undeniable and exact? The book on the pedestal began to glow brighter. The pages turned faster now, not randomly, but with purpose. And then they stopped. The glow intensified, and I saw it. The covenant. My marriage covenant. Written not in ink, but in light. My vows were there. Every word I had spoken on my wedding day. I, Rebecca, take you, David, to be my lawfully wedded husband. To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part.
I stared at the words, and for the first time I understood what they meant. Not legally. Not ceremonially. Spiritually. These were not just promises we made to each other. They were vows we made before God. Witnessed. Recorded. Binding in a way I had never taken seriously. I had treated my marriage like a contract. Something I could renegotiate. Something I could weaponize when David did not meet my standards. But this was a covenant. Sacred. Unbreakable. And I had shattered it with 1,000 careless words. Do you see it now? The voice filled the room, gentle but unmovable. Do you see what you were given? I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I did see it. I saw the weight of what I had been entrusted with. A man who loved me. A man who stayed. A man who honored his vows even when I did not honor mine. The presence continued, and the air seemed to hum with each word. You asked for a husband who would never leave. I gave you one. And you made his faithfulness your excuse to wound him. The words hit me like a physical blow. I doubled over, my hands pressed against the cold marble floor. It was true. All of it. I had wanted security. I had wanted a man who would not abandon me the way my father had. And when David stayed, when he absorbed my anger and my cruelty and never walked away, I took it as permission to continue. I mistook his loyalty for weakness. I mistook his love for tolerance. Another scene appeared above the book. A dinner party. 6 months ago. David's brother and his wife had come over. We were sitting around the table, laughing, talking, and then David mentioned an idea he had. A side business. Woodworking. Custom furniture. He was excited. I could see it in his eyes. The hope. The possibility. And I crushed it. David, you cannot even finish the projects in our garage, I said, laughing like it was a joke. Maybe focus on those before you start a business. Everyone went quiet. His brother looked uncomfortable. David's face went pale. He forced a smile, nodded, and changed the subject. But I saw it. I saw the exact moment something inside him died. And I felt satisfied. Justified. Like I had done him a favor by keeping his expectations realistic. Now, standing in this courtroom, feeling what he felt in that moment, I wanted to scream. The humiliation. The shame. The betrayal of being mocked by the person who was supposed to be his safe place. He had been vulnerable. He had shared something that mattered to him. And I had used it to make him feel small in front of people he loved. I watched the rest of the night unfold. The drive home in silence. David going straight to the garage, not to work on a project, but to sit alone in the dark. Me going to bed, already asleep by the time he came in. He slept on the couch that night. I did not even notice. Why? I whispered, my voice breaking. Why did I do that to him? The presence did not answer immediately. Instead, more scenes appeared. Faster now. A montage of moments I had buried. Forgotten. Justified. The time I refused to go to his company Christmas party because I said his coworkers were boring. The look on his face when I told him to go alone. The time he bought me flowers after a fight, and I left them on the counter to die because I said apologies required more than flowers. The time he suggested we take a weekend trip, just the two of us, and I told him we could not afford it, then booked a spa day with my friends the next week. The time he reached for my hand in church, and I pulled away because I was still mad about something he had said 2 days earlier. Each scene was a knife. Each memory a wound I had inflicted and forgotten. But he had not forgotten. He carried every single one. I felt his loneliness. The ache of being married to someone who treated him like an employee she was perpetually disappointed in. The exhaustion of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. The slow, agonizing realization that nothing he did would ever be enough. I did not know, I sobbed. I did not know it was that bad. You did not want to know. The voice was not harsh, but it was firm. Truthful. You saw his pain. You chose to ignore it. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend myself. But I could not. Because it was true. I had seen the way he shut down. I had seen the way he stopped trying. I had seen the distance growing between us. And I had blamed him for it. I had told myself he was weak. Passive. Unwilling to fight for us. But he had been fighting. Every single day. He had been fighting to love me despite the way I treated him. And I had called his endurance weakness. The book glowed brighter, and another page turned. This time, the scene was from our wedding day. We were standing at the altar, young and hopeful, hands clasped, eyes locked. The pastor was speaking about covenant. About sacrifice. About laying down your life for the one you love. I remembered that moment. I remembered feeling excited. Safe. Like I had finally found someone who would not leave. But I had not heard the part about sacrifice. I had not heard the part about laying down my life. I had only heard the part about him staying. Your words were sharp because your heart was hard. The voice again, cutting through my thoughts like light through darkness. You punished him for not being the father you needed. And there it was. The truth I had been running from my entire life. My father's face appeared in the air. Not a scene from my marriage. A memory from my childhood. I was 9 years old, sitting on the front porch, waiting for him to pick me up for the weekend. He had promised. He had said he would be there at noon. I waited until 5. He never came. He never called. My mother found me still sitting there, tears dried on my face, and all she said was, "Men are liars, Rebecca. The sooner you learn that, the better." I watched my younger self internalize that message. I watched the wall go up around my heart. I watched the decision form, I would never be that vulnerable again. I would never give a man the power to hurt me the way my father had. And then I saw David. Kind, steady, loyal David. And I realized what I had done. I had married him not because I loved him, but because I thought I could control him. I thought if I kept him small, kept him insecure, kept him working for my approval, he would never leave. I would never be that little girl on the porch again. But in trying to protect myself, I had become my mother. Cold. Controlling. Cruel. I had repeated the exact pattern I swore I would break. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, I am not her. I am not. You are. The voice was not condemning. Just honest. But you do not have to stay her. I looked up, tears blurring my vision. The presence felt closer now. Not physically. But spiritually. Like it was reaching into the deepest part of me, the part one had locked away and refused to let anyone see. He loved you, Rebecca. Truly. Fully. Imperfectly, but faithfully. And you mistook his imperfection for betrayal. Another scene. Recent. Just weeks ago. David had forgotten to pick up milk on the way home. Such a small thing. But I had berated him for 20 minutes. I had brought up every other time he had forgotten something. I had made him feel incompetent. Worthless. And when he finally apologized, I had refused to accept it. I made him sleep in the guest room that night. Now, watching it again, feeling what he felt, I realized something devastating. He had not forgotten the milk because he did not care. He had forgotten because he had been distracted. He had been thinking about me. About how to fix us. About whether it was even possible anymore. And I had punished him for loving me. The flames beneath the glass floor surged, and I gasped. The light from the book intensified, and I understood. This was not just about showing me what I had done. This was about showing me what was at stake. My marriage. My covenant. My soul. Marriage is not a courtroom, the voice said, and the words settled over me like a final verdict. But today, you stand in mine. I could not breathe. Or maybe I was breathing, but it did not feel like enough. The weight of those words pressed down on me like I was buried under stone. Marriage is not a courtroom. But I had made it one. I had been the judge, the jury, the prosecutor. And David had been the defendant who could never prove his innocence. The scenes kept coming. Relentless. Unforgiving in their clarity. I saw the morning after our 5th anniversary. David had planned a surprise dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. He had made reservations weeks in advance. He had even bought me a necklace, something simple but thoughtful. But I came home from work in a terrible mood, and when he told me about the dinner, I snapped at him. I am exhausted, David. I do not want to go out. Why did you not ask me first? I watched his face fall. Watched him quietly cancel the reservation while I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. He never gave me the necklace. I found it months later in his sock drawer and asked him what it was. He just said he had bought it for someone at work as a gift. I believed him. Or maybe I just did not care enough to push. Now I knew the truth. He had been trying. He had been fighting for us in the only ways he knew how. And I had shut him down every single time. Why am I seeing this? I choked out, my voice barely audible. Why are you showing me all of this? The presence did not answer immediately. Instead, a scroll unrolled from one of the stone tables. It floated through the air, glowing faintly, and stopped in front of me. I did not want to look. Every instinct in me screamed to turn away. But I could not. My eyes were drawn to it like gravity. The scroll showed the future. Not a possibility. A trajectory. The path I was on if nothing changed. I saw David and me 5 years from now. Still married. Still living in the same house. But we were strangers. We slept in separate bedrooms. We ate meals in silence. We spoke only when necessary, our voices flat and emotionless, like business partners trapped in a contract neither of us had the energy to escape. I saw David's eyes. Empty. The light completely gone. He had stopped hoping. Stopped dreaming. Stopped believing that anything could ever be different. He was alive, but only technically. The man I had married no longer existed. And I saw myself. Bitter. Angry. Blaming him for the coldness I had created. Surrounded by achievements at work but completely alone at home. Convinced I was right. Convinced I was the victim. Never once looking in the mirror long enough to see the truth. The scroll moved forward. 10 years. David's health was failing. Stress. Depression. The slow erosion of a man who had been emotionally starved for too long. I was still there, but only out of obligation. We barely spoke. When he died, I would feel relief. Not grief. Relief. And then the scroll showed me something worse. Our children. We did not have children yet, but we had talked about it. In this future, we did. A daughter. 8 years old. And she was watching us. Learning from us. Absorbing the way I treated her father. The way I dismissed him. The way I made him feel invisible. I watched her grow into a teenager, sharp-tongued and cold, treating boys the way I treated David. I watched her build walls around her heart the same way I had. I watched the generational curse pass from my mother to me to her, a poison that would keep spreading unless someone stopped it. No, I whispered, shaking my head violently. No, I would never. I would not do that to my children. You already are. The voice was quiet now, almost gentle, but the truth in it was brutal. Every day you choose cruelty, you teach them that love is conditional. That marriage is war. That the people closest to you are the safest to wound. The scroll dissolved, and I was left staring at the empty space where my future had been. A future I had been building brick by brick with every harsh word, every dismissive glance, every refusal to forgive. Another memory surfaced. My mother. Standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at my father with contempt as he tried to explain why he was late coming home. She did not yell. She did not scream. She just looked at him like he was nothing. Like he was an inconvenience she had learned to tolerate. And my father, he just took it. He apologized. He tried harder. He shrank a little more each time. Until one day, he was gone. Not physically at first. But emotionally. He stopped talking. Stopped trying. Stopped being present. And then, eventually, he left for good. I had blamed him for leaving. I had hated him for it. But now, standing here, I understood. He had not left because he was weak. He had left because he was dying. And my mother had been killing him one contemptuous look at a time. Just like I was killing David. I did not mean to, I sobbed, my whole body shaking. I did not mean to become her. Intent does not erase impact. The voice was firm but not unkind. You have wounded him deeply, Rebecca. And wounds unacknowledged do not heal. They fester. Another scene appeared. This one from just days before I died. David had asked me to go for a walk with him. It was a Saturday morning, cool and clear, the kind of day we used to enjoy together when we were first married. He had this hopeful look on his face, like maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. And I said no. I said I had work to catch up on. I did not. I just did not want to spend time with him. The distance between us had become comfortable. Easier than trying. Safer than being vulnerable. I watched him nod, that familiar resignation settling over his features. He went for the walk alone. And I sat on the couch, scrolling through my phone, feeling nothing. Now, I felt everything. The loneliness he carried. The rejection. The slow, painful acceptance that his wife did not want him anymore. Not physically. Not emotionally. Not spiritually. I was his wife in name only. And he knew it. And he stayed anyway. Because he had made a vow. Because he still believed in the covenant I had abandoned. He deserved better, I whispered. He deserved so much better than me. He deserved the woman you promised to be. The voice paused, letting the words settle. And you deserved the man he was trying to be. But neither of you could become those people while you were at war. The book on the pedestal pulsed with light, and the pages turned again. This time I saw something different. Not a memory. Not a future. A possibility. I saw David and me in our kitchen. But it was different. He was laughing. I was smiling. Not the fake smiles we had worn for years, but real ones. Genuine. We were cooking together, moving around each other with ease, comfortable in each other's presence. There was peace. Not perfection. But peace. I saw myself apologizing. Really apologizing. Not with excuses or justifications, but with full ownership. I saw David crying, the years of pain finally being acknowledged. I saw us in counseling, doing the hard work, facing the wounds neither of us wanted to face. I saw slow, painful, beautiful healing. It was not easy. The vision showed arguments. Setbacks. Moments where old patterns tried to resurface. But each time, I saw us choosing differently. Choosing vulnerability over control. Choosing forgiveness over scorekeeping. Choosing love over being right. And I saw something else. A daughter. The same daughter from the other vision. But in this one, she was different. She was watching us navigate conflict with respect. She was learning that love does not mean perfection, but it does mean repair. She was seeing a mother who was humble enough to admit when she was wrong and a father who was strong enough to forgive. This is still possible, the voice said. But only if you choose it. Every single day. For the rest of your life. I stared at the vision, desperate to hold on to it, terrified it would slip away. How? I asked, my voice raw. How do I fix this? How do I become that person? You have already been shown the truth. Now you must live it. The book began to close, slowly, the pages folding over one another with a weight that felt final. The scrolls on the tables rolled themselves up, one by one, each tied with golden cord and placed back in perfect order. The flames beneath the glass floor dimmed, not extinguished, but banked. Waiting. You are returning, the voice said. Not because you deserve it. But because mercy is not about deserving. The air shifted. The courtroom began to fade at the edges, dissolving into light. I felt something pulling at me, like a rope tied around my chest, tugging me backward. I wanted to resist. I wanted to stay and hear more. Understand more. But the pull was too strong. Wait, I gasped. What do I tell him? What do I say? The truth. The light intensified, blinding now, and I felt my body calling to me from somewhere far away. I could hear voices. Shouting. Beeping machines. David's voice, broken and desperate, begging me to come back. The last thing I saw before the courtroom disappeared completely was the book. Still on the pedestal. Still glowing. My name still inscribed at the top. A reminder. A warning. A promise. This record still exists. I would return to this place one day. We all would. And everything I did from this moment forward would be written there. The light swallowed me whole, and I felt my body pulling me back like a hook in my chest. I did not want to go. I was not ready. The truth I had learned here felt too big, too heavy, too impossible to carry into the life I had left behind. But ready or not, I was being sent back. And this time I would have to face David with the full weight of what I had become. The pull was violent. Not gentle. Not like being guided back to my body, but like being yanked by a chain wrapped around my ribs. The courtroom dissolved into fragments of light, spinning, blurring, and I felt myself hurtling through space that had no shape, no dimension, no logic. I tried to scream, but I had no voice. I tried to grab onto something, anything, but there was nothing to hold. And then I hit. My chest exploded with pain. A sharp, violent breath tore into my lungs like broken glass. My back arched off the floor, my hands clawing at the air, my whole body convulsing as life forced itself back into me. The light was too bright. The sounds were too loud. Everything was sharp and wrong and overwhelming. Rebecca. Rebecca, stay with me. David's voice. Broken. Desperate. Close. I tried to focus, but my vision was swimming. Shapes moved above me. Faces I did not recognize. Paramedics. One of them was pressing something against my chest. Another was shouting numbers. The ceiling of my kitchen spun above me, the fluorescent light stabbing into my eyes. We have a pulse, someone said. BP is climbing. She is back. Back. I was back. But I was not the same. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw, closed. A choking sound came out instead, and someone tilted my head to the side. I coughed, gasping, my whole body trembling uncontrollably. My hands were shaking so hard I could not hold them still. Tears poured down my face before I even understood why I was crying.
Ma'am, can you hear me? A paramedic leaned over me, shining a light in my eyes. Rebecca, can you hear me? I nodded weakly, but I was not looking at him. I was looking past him. At David. He was on his knees beside me, his face pale, his eyes red and swollen. His hands were hovering over me like he wanted to touch me but was afraid to, like he was afraid I would break. Or disappear again. You're okay, he whispered, his voice shaking. You're okay. You're here. But I was not okay. Nothing was okay. I tried to lift my hand toward him, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My fingers barely moved. He saw it though. He saw me trying. And he grabbed my hand, gripping it tightly, his tears falling onto my arm. I thought I lost you, he choked out. I thought you were gone. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say everything I had seen, everything I had learned, everything I understood now. But the words would not come. My throat was too tight. My chest too heavy. All I could do was cry. The paramedics moved quickly around me, checking vitals, asking questions I could barely process. They wanted to take me to the hospital. Standard protocol. Cardiac arrest. Observation. Tests. I heard the words, but they felt distant, like they were meant for someone else. David rode with me in the ambulance. He did not let go of my hand the entire time. I kept staring at him, memorizing his face, seeing him differently now. Not as the man I had spent 10 years resenting, but as the man I had spent 10 years destroying. The hospital was a blur of white walls and beeping machines and doctors with calm, clinical voices. They ran tests. EKG. Blood work. CT scan. They said my heart was stable. They said I was lucky. They used the word miracle more than once. But I was not thinking about my heart. I was thinking about the courtroom. The book. The scenes. The voice. Your daily words are being recorded as eternal evidence. I could not stop shaking. They kept me overnight for observation. David stayed. He pulled a chair next to my bed and refused to leave, even when the nurses told him visiting hours were over. He just sat there, watching me, his eyes heavy with exhaustion and relief and something else I could not name. It was almost midnight when I finally found my voice. David. He sat up immediately, leaning forward. I am here. What do you need? Water? Should I call the nurse? No, my voice was hoarse, barely more than a whisper. I need to tell you something. He went still. His face shifted, guarded, like he was bracing himself for another fight. Another accusation. Another wound. I did not blame him. I died, I said quietly. In the kitchen. I died. He nodded slowly. I know. The paramedics said your heart stopped for 7 minutes. They almost could not bring you back. No, I shook my head, tears spilling over. You do not understand. I died. And I went somewhere. His brow furrowed. He did not say anything. He just waited. I was in a courtroom, I continued, my voice trembling. Not like the ones we have here. It was different. There was a book with my name on it. And everything I ever said to you, everything I ever did, it was all there. Recorded. Replayed. David's grip on my hand loosened slightly. He looked confused. Maybe even concerned. Like he thought the lack of oxygen had damaged my brain. I saw it all, David. My voice broke. I saw the way I treated you. I saw every cruel thing I said. Every time I made you feel small. Every time I punished you for just existing. And I did not just see it. I felt it. I felt what you felt. He went very still. His eyes searched my face, looking for something. Truth. Sincerity. Maybe even sanity. I felt how lonely you were, I whispered. How exhausted. How much you tried. How much I hurt you. The tears came harder now, choking me. I became my mother, David. I swore I would never become her, and I did. I punished you for things you never did. I made you pay for my father's sins. And I almost destroyed you. David's joy tightened. His eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back. Rebecca. No, please. Let me finish. I squeezed his hand weakly. There was a voice. I do not know if it was God or an angel or... I do not know. But it told me the truth. It told me that I asked for a husband who would never leave, and you stayed. You stayed through everything. And I used your faithfulness as permission to wound you. He looked away, his throat working as he swallowed hard. A tear slipped down his cheek. I am so sorry. My voice cracked completely. I am so sorry. You did not deserve the way I treated you. You deserved love. You deserved kindness. You deserved a wife who saw you and honored you and protected your heart. And I did none of those things. David was crying now, silently, his shoulders shaking. He covered his face with his free hand, and I heard a sound escape him that I had never heard before. A deep, guttural sob. Years of pain finally breaking through the surface. I tried, he whispered, his voice muffled. I tried so hard, Rebecca. But nothing I did was ever enough. I know. I was sobbing now too. I know you did. And it was never about you. It was me. It was always me. I was so afraid of being hurt that I hurt you first. Every single day. And I told myself it was your fault. We sat there in the dim hospital room, both of us crying, both of us finally acknowledging the wreckage we had been living in for so long. The machines beeped steadily around us. The fluorescent lights hummed. Outside the door, nurses moved quietly through the halls. But in that moment, it was just us. Two broken people. One broken marriage. And the terrifying, fragile possibility that maybe, just maybe, it was not too late. I do not know if you can forgive me, I said quietly. I do not know if I even deserve forgiveness. But I am asking. I am begging. Give me a chance to be different. To be the wife I promised to be. David lowered his hand and looked at me. His eyes were red, swollen, devastated. But there was something else there too. Something I had not seen in years. Hope. I do not know how to do this, he said, his voice raw. I do not know how to trust you again. I do not either, I admitted. But I am willing to figure it out. I am willing to do whatever it takes. Therapy. Counseling. Whatever we need. I am not asking you to forget. I am just asking you to let me try. He was quiet for a long time. I watched him wrestle with it, watched the years of pain and the flicker of hope battle inside him. And then, finally, he nodded. Okay, he whispered. Okay. It was not a declaration of healed love. It was not a promise that everything would be fine. It was just, okay? A willingness to try. A crack in the wall. A single step towards something that might, one day, look like healing. I closed my eyes, exhausted, my body still trembling from everything it had been through. But for the first time in years, I felt something other than anger or fear or bitterness. I felt gratitude. I had been given a second chance. Not because I deserved it. But because mercy does not work that way. And I was not going to waste it. They released me from the hospital 2 days later with a list of follow-up appointments and a prescription I barely paid attention to. My body was healing. My heart was stable. But the real damage was not something a cardiologist could measure. It was not something a prescription could fix. The drive home was quiet. David had brought me a change of clothes, helped me into the car, asked if I needed anything. His voice was gentle, careful, like he was talking to someone fragile. And I was fragile, but not in the way he thought. I kept seeing the courtroom, the book, the flames beneath the glass. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back there, standing before the presence that had seen every word, every thought, every moment I had tried to bury. When we pulled into the driveway, I stared at our house like I was seeing it for the first time. The blue shutters David had painted 3 summers ago. The garden I had let die because I was too busy to water it. The front porch where we used to sit together on Saturday mornings before life got complicated and I got cruel. It looked the same, but I was different. David unlocked the door and held it open for me. I stepped inside, and the first thing I saw was the kitchen. The tile floor where I had collapsed. The dishes still in the sink from that night. The coffee maker on the counter. Everything exactly as I had left it. Except I had left it dead. And now I was standing here alive, with no idea how to live differently. "Do you want to rest?" David asked, setting my bag down by the stairs. "I can bring you some water. Make you something to eat." "No," I turned to face him. "I want to talk." He hesitated. I saw the exhaustion in his face, the emotional toll of the last few days. But he nodded and followed me into the living room. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us a physical representation of the years we had spent drifting apart. I meant what I said in the hospital. I started, my hands twisting together in my lap. About therapy. About doing whatever it takes. I know I hurt you. I know I broke trust that might never fully come back. But I need you to know I am serious. I am not just saying this because I almost died. I am saying it because I finally see what I have done. David nodded slowly, but he did not look at me. He was staring at his hands, his jaw tight. "I have thought about leaving," he said quietly. "A lot. Especially this past year." The words hit me like a fist to the chest, but I forced myself to stay still. To listen. "I would imagine packing a bag," he continued, his voice thick. "Finding an apartment. Starting over. And every time, I would stop. Because I made a vow. Because I still believed that somewhere underneath all the anger, the woman I married was still there." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were wet. "But I was not sure anymore. I was not sure you even wanted to be found." I could not speak. My throat was too tight. All I could do was nod and let the tears fall. "And then you collapsed," he said, his voice breaking. "And I thought the last thing I would ever say to you was that I was not your father. That I had stayed. That I had always stayed. And I did not know if you even heard me." "I heard you." My voice came out in a whisper. "And you were right. You are not my father. You never were. But I treated you like you were. I punished you for his failures. I built a wall around my heart and convinced myself it was protection when really it was just a weapon." David wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I do not know how to do this, Rebecca. I do not know how to let you back in without being afraid you will hurt me again. I know." I shifted closer, not touching him, but closing the distance slightly. "And I cannot promise I will be perfect. I cannot promise I will never mess up or say something wrong. But I can promise I will try. I will catch myself. I will apologize when I am wrong. I will go to therapy and do the work to understand why I became this way." He looked at me for a long moment, searching my face. "What did you see?" he asked quietly. "In that courtroom. What exactly did you see?" I took a shaky breath. "I saw us. Every fight. Every cruel word. Every moment I made you feel small. But I did not just watch it. I felt it. I felt what you felt. The rejection. The loneliness. The exhaustion of trying to love someone who only saw your flaws." I paused, my voice trembling. I saw what I was becoming. What our future would look like if nothing changed. And it was empty. Cold. We were married, but we were strangers. And I realized I was killing you. Slowly. The same way my mother killed my father. David closed his eyes, fresh tears sliding down his cheeks. "And then I saw something else," I continued. I saw what we could be. If I changed. If I chose differently. I saw us healing. Not perfectly. But really. I saw us learning to fight without wounding. I saw us building something real instead of just surviving. My voice broke. I saw us happy, David. And I want that. I want that so badly. He opened his eyes and looked at me, and I saw it. The hope. Fragile. Cautious. But there. I want that too, he whispered. I am just scared. Me too. I reached out slowly, giving him the chance to pull away. He did not. I took his hand, and this time, it did not feel like obligation. It felt like a choice. But maybe we can be scared together. And figure it out one day at a time. He nodded, squeezing my hand gently. One day at a time. We sat there in silence, holding on to each other, holding on to the possibility that broken things could be repaired if both people were willing to do the work. It was not a fairy tale ending. It was not a dramatic reconciliation where everything was suddenly okay. It was just two wounded people deciding to stop wounding each other and start healing instead. The next morning, I called a therapist. A marriage counselor someone from church had recommended years ago when I had left and said we did not need it. I left a message. Asked for the first available appointment. David heard me and did not say anything. He just nodded. A quiet acknowledgement that I was serious. Over the next few weeks, we started the hard work. The kind no one talks about. The kind that does not come with a manual or a guaranteed outcome. We went to counseling together. I went alone. I learned about generational trauma. About how children absorb their parents' dysfunction and carry it into their own relationships. About how control is just fear wearing a mask. I learned that I had spent my entire marriage trying to make David prove he would not leave, and in doing so, I had given him every reason to. I learned that love is not about winning. It is not about being right. It is about choosing someone even when it is hard. Even when you are angry. Even when they are imperfect. I learned to pause before I spoke. To ask myself, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? And if the answer to any of those was no, I kept my mouth shut. It was not easy. Old patterns do not die quietly. There were moments I slipped. Moments I said something sharp and had to stop myself, apologize immediately, own it fully. No excuses. No justifications. Just, I was wrong. I am sorry. And slowly, David started to soften. Not because he forgot, but because he saw me trying. He saw me choosing differently. He saw me becoming the woman I had promised to be 10 years ago. One night, about 2 months after I came home from the hospital, we were in the kitchen making dinner together. He was chopping vegetables. I was stirring something on the stove. And he said something. Something small. Something I would have normally corrected or dismissed. But I did not. I just smiled and said, "That is a good idea." He looked up surprised. And then he smiled. A real smile. The kind I had not seen in years. And I realized, this is what healing looks like. Not a single dramatic moment, but 1,000 small choices. 1,000 moments of choosing love over being right. Choosing kindness over control. Choosing to build instead of destroy. I thought about the courtroom often. About the book with my name on it. About the flames beneath the glass floor. About the voice that had told me I was being sent back. Not because I deserved it. But because mercy is not about deserving. I knew I would return there one day. We all would. And everything I did from this moment forward would be recorded. Every word. Every choice. Every moment I chose love or chose cruelty. And I wanted my record to be different. I wanted the next time I stood before that book, the scenes that played would not be ones of destruction. They would be ones of repair. Of humility. Of a woman who was broken and was given a second chance and did not waste it. I looked at David, still smiling as he cooked beside me, and I felt something I had not felt in years. Gratitude. Hope. And the terrifying, beautiful realization that love is not something you fall into once and forget about. It is something you choose. Every single day. For the rest of your life. And I was choosing him. Finally. Fully. The way I should have from the beginning. The first therapy session was 3 weeks after I came home from the hospital. David and I sat in a small office with soft lighting and two chairs that faced each other at an angle. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Carson, sat across from us with a notepad and a calm expression that somehow made me feel more nervous, not less. "So," she said gently, "tell me why you are here." I looked at David. He looked at his hands. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and heavy, until I could not stand it anymore. "I almost destroyed my marriage," I said, my voice barely steady. "I spent 10 years tearing my husband down, and I did not even realize what I was doing until I died and saw it all replayed in front of me." Dr. Carson did not flinch. She just nodded, like she had heard versions of this story 100 times before. "And David, what would you say?" He swallowed hard, his jaw tight. "I would say, I have been lonely for a long time, and I did not know how to tell her without making it worse." The words hit me like a punch. I had known it, seen it in the courtroom, felt it in the hospital. But hearing him say it out loud, in this quiet room, made it unbearably real. Dr. Carson leaned forward slightly. "Rebecca, you said you did not realize what you were doing. Can you tell me more about that?" I took a shaky breath. I grew up watching my mother control my father with words. She never hit him. She never screamed. She just made him feel small. And I hated her for it. I swore I would never be like her. My voice cracked. But I became exactly like her. I used the same tactics. The same cold silences. The same cutting remarks. And I convinced myself it was different because I was not trying to hurt him. I was just trying to. I do not even know. Protect myself, I guess. Protect yourself from what? From being abandoned. The answer came quickly, like it had been sitting at the surface waiting to be named. My father left when I was young, and I was terrified David would do the same. So I kept him off balance, kept him trying to earn my approval, because I thought if he was always working for it, he would not leave. Dr. Carson nodded slowly. "And David, how did that feel?" David's voice was quiet, strained. Like I was never enough. Like no matter what I did, I was failing. And after a while, I just stopped trying. I stayed because I made a vow. But I stopped hoping things would get better. I closed my eyes, tears slipping down my cheeks. Hearing him say it, hearing the resignation in his voice, was almost worse than seeing it in the courtroom. "Here is what I am hearing," Dr. Carson said carefully. "Rebecca, you were operating from a place of fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of vulnerability. And that fear became a weapon. David, you were operating from a place of exhaustion. You stayed, but you stopped fighting because fighting felt futile." She paused. "The good news is you are both here. You are both willing to do the work." That is not nothing. Over the next several weeks, we kept going back. Week after week. Sometimes the sessions were productive. Sometimes they were painful. But we kept showing up. I learned things about myself I did not want to know. I learned that my need for control was rooted in childhood trauma I had never processed. I learned that every time I criticized David, I was really just trying to manage my own anxiety. I learned that love and fear cannot coexist in the same space, and I had chosen fear for so long that love had nearly suffocated. But the hardest part was not learning. It was changing. It was catching myself mid-sentence when I was about to say something sharp and stopping. Physically stopping. Closing my mouth. Taking a breath. Choosing a different response. It was exhausting. 10 years of patterns do not dissolve overnight. My brain had grooves worn into it, automatic responses that fired before I even realized what I was doing. I had to rewire everything. And some days I failed. One morning, David forgot to take the trash out. Again. And I felt the irritation rise up in me like a wave, fast and hot and familiar. My mouth opened. The words were right there, ready to cut. "David, seriously? How many times do I have to?" I stopped. Mid-sentence. The look on his face. The way his shoulders tensed. The way he was already bracing for impact. I took a breath. Then another. "I am sorry," I said quietly. "That was not okay. I was about to make this a bigger deal than it is." I paused, forcing myself to say the next part. "Can you take it out now? That would really help me." He stared at me, clearly surprised. Then he nodded. Yeah, I will do it right now. It was such a small moment. Such a tiny, insignificant exchange. But as I watched him walk outside with the trash bag, I realized something. This is what healing looks like. Not a single dramatic transformation, but 1,000 small choices. 1,000 moments where I chose differently. And slowly, David started to notice. He started to relax. Started to let his guard down, just a little. Started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I was serious about changing. One evening, about 2 months in, he was sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook. I recognized it. The one where he sketched furniture designs. The one I used to mock. I walked over, my heart pounding. This was a test. Not for him. For me. What are you working on? I asked, keeping my voice light, genuinely curious. He looked up, hesitant. Just an idea for a bookshelf. It is probably stupid. Everything in me wanted to correct that. To say it was not stupid, but maybe impractical, or maybe he should focus on finishing other projects first. The words were right there, lined up and ready. But I did not say them. Can I see? I asked instead. He blinked, surprised. Then slowly, he turned the notebook toward me. The sketch was detailed, careful. He had clearly spent time on it. This is really beautiful, David, I said, and I meant it. I love the clean lines. And the way you incorporated the shelves at different heights. That is smart. His face changed. Softened. He looked at me like he was trying to figure out if I was being sincere or setting him up for something. You really think so? He asked quietly. I do. I pulled out the chair next to him and sat down. Tell me about it. What kind of wood were you thinking? And he did. He told me about the design, the measurements, the joinery techniques he wanted to try. And I listened. Really listened. Not waiting for my turn to talk. Not looking for flaws. Just listening. When he finished, there were tears in his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For seeing me. I reached over and took his hand. I am sorry it took me so long. That weekend, we went out to the garage together. I had not been out there in years. It was David's space, filled with tools and half-finished projects and sawdust that covered everything. He showed me what he had been working on. A small table. A picture frame. A jewelry box he had started for me 3 years ago and never finished because I had made a comment about him wasting time. I picked up the jewelry box, running my fingers over the smooth wood. Will you finish it? I asked. He looked at me uncertain. Do you want me to? Yes, I said. I really do. A few weeks later, I drove to my mother's house. I had not seen her since before I died. Had not told her what happened. We were not close. We had not been close for years. But I needed to do this. I needed to face her. She answered the door with her usual expression. Neutral. Controlled. Rebecca, this is unexpected. Can I come in? She stepped aside, and I walked into the living room I had grown up in. Everything looked the same. The same furniture. The same cold, sterile feeling. We sat down, and I did not waste time. I need to tell you something, I said. I almost destroyed my marriage. I became exactly like you. And I am not doing it anymore. Her face hardened. Excuse me. You heard me. I spent 10 years treating David the way you treated Dad. Criticizing him. Controlling him. Making him feel like he was never enough. And I am done. I am breaking the cycle. She stood up, her voice sharp. I did not come here to be attacked, Rebecca. If you have issues with your marriage, that is your problem. Do not blame me for your failures. I am not blaming you, I said, staying calm. I am just telling you I am not doing it anymore. I am setting a boundary. I am not going to absorb your bitterness anymore. I am not going to let you treat me the way you treated Dad. She stared at me, her jaw tight. I think you should leave. I stood up slowly. Okay, but I want you to know I forgive you. I do not know if you will ever apologize. I do not know if you even think you did anything wrong. But I forgive you anyway. Because I cannot heal if I keep holding on to what you did. I walked out of her house and sat in my car for a long time, crying. Not because I was sad, but because I was free. I could not fix her. I could not make her see what she had done. But I could choose to be different. And that was enough. 6 months after I came home from the hospital, I woke up to the sound of David making breakfast. Not just coffee. Actual breakfast. Eggs. Toast. The smell of butter and warmth filling the house. I walked into the kitchen, and he looked up, smiling. Not the forced smile I had grown used to over the years. A real one. The kind that reached his eyes. "Morning," he said, sliding a plate toward me. "I made your favorite." I sat down at the table, staring at the food, feeling a lump rise in my throat. Not because of the eggs, but because 6 months ago, this moment would have been impossible. 6 months ago, we were strangers living in the same house, going through the motions, slowly dying inside. And now we were here. Together. Choosing each other. "Thank you," I said quietly, looking up at him. He sat down across from me, and we ate in comfortable silence. Not the heavy, suffocating silence we used to live in, but the kind of silence that feels safe. Peaceful. Later that day, David brought up our anniversary. "It is coming up next week," he said, his voice tentative. I was thinking, maybe we could go out to dinner? That Italian place you like. I looked at him, and I saw the nervousness in his face. The fear that I would say no. That I would dismiss it. That I would find some reason it was not a good idea. "I would love that," I said, and I meant it. His whole body relaxed. Yeah. I smiled. "Let me pick the day, and we will make it happen." A few days later, David came home from work with something in his hand. A small box. He set it on the table between us, not saying anything, just watching my face. I opened it slowly, and inside was the necklace. The one he had bought for our 5th anniversary. The one he never gave me because I had been too exhausted, too irritable, too closed off to receive it. "You kept it," I whispered, tears spilling over. "I could not throw it away," he said quietly. "I kept hoping that one day you would want it." I took the necklace out of the box, my hands shaking, and held it up to the light. It was simple. Elegant. Exactly something I would have loved if I had let myself love anything back then. "Will you put it on me?" I asked. He stood up, walked around the table, and gently clasped it around my neck. His hands lingered on my shoulders for a moment, and I reached up, covering his hands with mine. "I am so sorry I made you wait," I whispered. "You are here now," he said. "That is what matters." As the weeks turned into months, our life started to look different. Not perfect. We still argued. We still had hard days. But the arguments did not end in wounds anymore. They ended in repair. In apologies. In choosing each other even when it was hard. We learned to fight without destroying. We learned to disagree without dismissing. We learned that love is not the absence of conflict. It is the choice to stay and work through it. And slowly, intimacy returned. Not just physical, though that came too, but emotional intimacy. The kind where you can be fully seen and fully loved at the same time. The kind I had been too afraid to allow for 10 years. One night, lying in bed, David turned to me and said, "Do you ever think about what you saw?" In the courtroom. Every day, I admitted. I cannot unsee it. I cannot unhear what I was told. "Does it scare you?" Terrified, I said honestly. "Because I know I will go back there one day. We all will. And everything I am doing now, every choice I make, it is all being recorded." I turned to look at him. But I am also grateful. Because if I had not died, if I had not seen what I was doing, I would have kept destroying us. And I would have stood before that book one day with nothing but regret. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am glad you came back." Me too. But the transformation was not just personal. It was not just about David and me. Because the more I healed, the more I realized I had a responsibility to share what I had learned. Not to boast. Not to make myself look good. But to warn others before it was too late. I started telling my story. Carefully. Quietly at first. I shared it with a small group at church. Just a few women who met on Tuesday mornings to talk about marriage and faith and the struggles no one wants to admit out loud. I told them about the courtroom. About the book. About the scenes that played in vivid, undeniable detail. About the voice that told me I had weaponized my husband's faithfulness. about the generational curse I had been carrying without even knowing it. And as I spoke, I saw it. The recognition in their eyes. The tears. The quiet nods. Because I was not the only one. I was not the only woman who had grown up watching her mother wound her father and vowed never to do the same, only to find herself repeating the pattern. After I finished, a woman named Sarah approached me. She was younger than me, maybe late 20s, and her hands were shaking. "I needed to hear this," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I have been doing the same thing to my husband. And I did not even realize it until you started talking." "It is not too late," I told her. "If I can change, anyone can." Over the next few months, more people reached out. Women who saw themselves in my story. Men who recognized their wives in my words and did not know how to help. Couples who were on the edge of divorce, holding on by a thread, desperate for hope. I started sharing my testimony more publicly. I recorded it, posted it online, not because I wanted attention, but because I knew there were people out there living the same nightmare I had lived, and they needed to know it did not have to end that way. The messages started coming in. Hundreds of them. From people all over the country. All over the world. I thought I was the only one. "You just described my marriage perfectly. I have been so cruel to my husband, and I did not even see it. My wife treats me exactly like you treated David. Is there hope for us? I am terrified I am going to lose him. How do I fix this?" I answered as many as I could. I told them the truth. That healing is hard. That it takes time. That both people have to be willing. That some marriages do not survive, and that is okay too. But that if there is even a sliver of willingness, there is hope. One message stood out. It was from a man named Robert. "My wife died 3 years ago," he wrote. "We were married for 28 years. And for most of those years, she treated me the way you treated David. I kept hoping she would change. I kept praying. But she never did. And then she had a heart attack and was gone. I never got the apology I needed. I never got to hear her say she was sorry. Your story gave me closure I did not know I needed. Thank you." I sat at my computer, tears streaming down my face, staring at his words. That could have been David. If I had not come back. If I had not been given a second chance. He would have spent the rest of his life carrying those wounds, never hearing the apology he deserved. I wrote back to Robert. Told him I was sorry. Told him he deserved better. Told him that his wife's inability to see what she was doing did not mean he was unworthy of love. And then I wrote something I had been thinking about for weeks. The courtroom is real. The book is real. And one day, your wife stood before it. And she saw everything. And I believe with everything in me that she is sorry now. Even if she could not say it to you here. I did not know if that was true. I did not know if everyone who dies gets the same experience I did. But I hoped. I hoped that somewhere, somehow, Robert's wife had faced the truth. And I hoped it brought him peace. The more I shared my story, the more I realized something. This was not just about marriage. It was about covenant. About the sacred promises we make and how easily we break them when no one is watching. About how our words carry weight we cannot see but will one day be held accountable for. It was about the truth that we are all building a record. Every day. Every word. Every choice. And one day we will stand before it. David and I went to dinner on our anniversary. We sat at a small table by the window, candles flickering between us, and I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt overwhelming gratitude. "Thank you for staying," I said. He reached across the table and took my hand. "Thank you for coming back." We were not the same people who had stood at the altar 11 years ago. We were not even the same people who had fought in the kitchen 6 months ago. We were two people who had been broken and were choosing, every single day, to heal. And that was enough. As I sit here now, telling you this story, I want you to understand something. I did not share this to make myself look good. I shared it because I know there are people listening who see themselves in me, who recognize the patterns, who feel the conviction rising in their chest. And I want you to know, it is not too late. If you are the one wounding your spouse, stop. Right now. Today. Do not wait until you are standing in that courtroom wishing you had chosen differently. Do not wait until your husband or wife is emotionally dead and you have no idea how to bring them back. Choose differently. Today, get help. Go to therapy. Confess your patterns. Own your wounds. Do the hard, painful, humbling work of change. And if you are the one being wounded, I want you to know, you are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not imagining it. Your pain is real. And you deserve to be loved with kindness, not cruelty. Set boundaries. Speak truth. Demand change. And if change does not come, know that staying is not always the most loving choice. Sometimes love means walking away. But if there is willingness, if there is humility, if there is genuine repentance, there is hope. I died on that kitchen floor defending my right to be cruel. I came back knowing that every word I speak is being recorded in eternity. And now, every single day, I have to choose, will I build my marriage or will I destroy it? The courtroom is still there. The book is still open. My name is still written at the top of the page. And one day, I will return. We all will. And when I do, I want the scenes that play to be different. I want them to show a woman who was broken, who was given mercy, and who did not waste it. I want them to show love. Real love. The kind that chooses kindly even when it is hard. The kind that repairs instead of wounds. The kind that honors the covenant instead of shattering it. That is the legacy I am building now. One word at a time. One choice at a time. One day at a time. And I pray that you will build the same. If this testimony moved you, if you see yourself in my story, do not wait until you are standing in that courtroom to realize what you have done. Change today. Apologize today. Choose love today. Subscribe to hear more stories like this. Turn on notifications. And maybe, just maybe, share this with someone who needs to hear it before it is too late. Because the truth is this. We are all writing our own stories. Every day, every word, every choice. And one day, those stories will be read aloud in a courtroom we cannot escape. What will yours say? Thank you for listening. If you are still here, thank you. Please subscribe if you want more testimonies like this. Subscribe and watch the next testimony on your screen.